Hello, I'm Craig, and welcome to another episode of Football Kit Memories, the football podcast that gets under the shirt. Today, I speak to Iain Trickett, the founder of the fashion brand that bears his name, Trickett. During our chat, we cover some of the different places Iain takes his inspiration from. There's his love of Italy, and in particular the city of Naples, and Iain shares the ethos behind the brand that strives to deliver such exquisite products with such passion and care. Later, I asked Iain to pick out 3 of his favourite football shirts and tell me a little bit about what they mean to him. We begin with what Iain calls the greatest piece of sportswear ever made, the Adidas Newcastle home shirt worn by Kevin Keegan's nearlymen. We move to the Bundesliga next, as Iain tells me the story behind getting hold of a Drake Ramberg classic worn by Borussia Dortmund in 1994-95. And we finish in the shadow of Mount Vesuvio, where Maradonna's triumph against all the odds delivered a Scudetto and Coppa Italia double for Napoli. Remember, you can listen to this and other episodes of Football Kit Memories on all major audio platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please do like, follow, share, but above all, please do enjoy the podcast. Okay, so today on the podcast, I am delighted to welcome founder of the eponymous super cool fashion brand, Mr. Iain Trickett. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
I'm delighted to have you here.
You're a flirt, but thank you very much. It's very fun.
So, Iain, tell me a bit more about how you started Trickett. It's back in 2012, right?
Obviously, I suppose it all links in quite nicely to what we'll be discussing later, but I've been obsessed with football, and in particular the shirts, since I was maybe 5 or 6. Right. So from there, it exploded really, because like I have a brain that can never really concentrate on anything for any length of time. So it goes from being interested in football shirts to being interested in hip hop and hip hop fashion, and then moving all the way through to Italian tailoring, and then moving across to all kinds of different things. So I'm quite lucky in that regard that I have a brain that doesn't concentrate on too many things too much. So I get able to have lots of different influences and have a reasonably okay knowledge about them. So really the whole brand and the ethos and the beginnings of it come from the fact that several people that know me very well at Christmas could never buy things for me that I liked, because I'd either bought it or I wouldn't be interested in what you got. That portrays me as a very ungrateful person. I'm very grateful for everything that I have, but I wanted to just create something that other people were interested in, and maybe shared the same similar experiences to me. So it started off with a microscopic collection of 10 things, and I sort of built it from there. No one bought anything for about a year, and then as tends to happen, the more you keep knocking at the door, eventually somebody answers. But yeah, I'm not trained in this. I can't draw. I can barely use a pair of scissors. I actually come from a music background. That's what I trained to do. I was a music producer for a very short amount of time, and then I went to work at a phone shop in Burnley, and then from there decided that I never wanted to have a proper job ever again, and that's what I did. So yeah, that's a very sort of vague and meandering explanation of how I got to where I am now, but it comes from raw passion, not from ever being taught anything. So yeah, that's me.
You're based in Accrington, right? And you talk a lot about the products kind of thing. A lot of the stuff you do is like locally sourced, etc. Is being kind of based and rooted in Accrington really important to you?
I'm very lucky being from Accrington. I know that seems almost a ridiculous thing to say, but I am proud, and people should be very proud of where they're from, because it very much shapes who you are and your attitudes towards life. Yeah, I make a lot of things in this country, but I certainly make a lot of things in Lancashire, and that isn't originally, it didn't come across as like a thing that I was like, oh well, I've got to make everything in Lancashire. It wasn't a decision. It was, where can I get the bus to, and where will these people actually listen to what I'm saying? So for example, the people in Accrington, John, who works at the factory that makes my aprons and bags and tea towels and lots of other things, he is my best mate's dad. So I would like say, oh John, I've got a big order for you, I've got 20 tea towels, and like in my brain I thought that's saving the factory, when in actual fact it would probably cost him more to make the tea towels in the staff time than it did in earning any money off it. But it was through the kindness of people like him and people like Upender in Bolton that makes some of my garments for me, and Neil in Leicester who makes my socks for me. These people sort of giving me a chance to actually do something that made Trickett what it was. Because if it wasn't for the kindness of other people and their ability to sort of look past this idiot that didn't know anything about clothes, I wouldn't be where I am. So it's without getting too deep, it's very much, although I'm very proud of Accrington and where I'm from, and the fact that I make stuff here, and the fact that I support here and I'm from here, it really is like a team effort. And the fact that everybody sort of pitches in and helps me to achieve what I want to achieve is, it's sort of very humbling every single day, if I'm honest.
Wow. So I was going to ask as well, there seems to be a lot of Italian influence on a lot of the products you make as well, especially stuff from Naples. So where does that all come from?
Mainly visiting. I'm very lucky. I've done a lot of traveling. I have a lot of friends and family that are Italian. So it was like osmosis in a way. A lot of the stuff to do with Napoli, I just assumed that people knew about, but that's because I've been entrenched in it since I was like maybe 17, 18. So I assumed that people knew about Cornicello and the hands and the superstitions and how much Maradona means to the city and the religion and Christianity and all that sort of stuff. I just thought that was something that people knew about, and that's why it wasn't particularly prevalent in the early stages of Trickett, because I didn't think that people would be that interested in it. Well, I got that a bit wrong. So because that's the thing that people come to us for now, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, like I think it's amazing, and it's one of the few places on earth that every single day I have a few mates that live out there, and every single day they'll send me a picture of something that I've never seen before, or something I'm like, wow, that's completely wild. I've never seen stuff like that before, and that's the magic of the place. So it's literally having friends and family there, but it is also being obsessed with a city that is unlike anywhere on earth. And I know that I would obviously say that because of how much I base my products around things, but literally there is nowhere like it. And if you've never been, anyone listening to this, if you've never been, go there. You'll either hate it or you'll love it. You won't come back from that holiday thinking, yeah, it's all right. You won't say that. You'll be like, oh my goodness, why did Ian tell me to go there? I think I need actual counsel once I come back. Or you'll be like, I completely get it. I'm in love with the place and I want to go live there. So yeah, there's no middle ground.
I tend to agree. Yeah, I've been before. I think it's a place that's kind of very in your face and very like seemingly quite aggressive, but actually when you speak to people, and I was lucky enough to kind of people were very friendly in bars and things, you actually realize they're very warm and kind people.
Yeah. It's again, I know it's a bit of a generalization, but the south of Italy, it's not particularly wealthy, but like so many places where they aren't financially wealthy, it tends to come across the social side of the way that they express themselves and looking after people and giving everything that they've got, even if they can't necessarily afford to. They'll look after you. It's quite a warm and hospitable place. It gets a really bad rep, whether that's from TV programs or people in the north of Italy in particular saying how horrible a place it is, but it really isn't. It seems like a really weird thing to say, and then I did like a little photographic book about Napoli a couple of years ago, and that it is weird that they share a lot of similar characteristics to Northern English people,
Right.
in that they are very funny, and that sort of hides a lot of disgruntlement. If I'm being, and they are quite they have a very dark sense of humor, very obsessed with death, but yeah, the similarities between the places, it's very strange, but don't get me wrong, there's a lot of differences, but they're at the very core, there's a lot of similarities between Northern England and Southern Italy.
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? I think the death thing's really interesting as well. That they're kind of this like huge city is kind of marked by this huge active volcano that could go off at any time, right? And I guess that kind of, you either live with the fear of God in you, or you kind of just need to go about your day with a kind of a nihilistic view on things. Sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I always forget the fella's name that said it ages ago when the people were doing grand tours of Italy, and he said that see Naples and die, and that wasn't that wasn't even get stabbed or anything. That was because it's so beautiful and unlike anywhere on earth. You see it and you're like, oh, all right, well, I've seen it now. I don't really need to see anywhere else. And obviously this was a long time ago, but I do still sort of feel a bit that way about it, in that once you've seen that, the only sort of place that I've been to that I recognize as similar is Marseille.
Right.
But a lot of people I know that have been to Lagos in Nigeria say that it's quite similar to that. People that Buenos Aires is pretty similar, but yeah, I just think it's unlike anywhere else because the people are what make it. You know, if you throw in football, pizza, pasta, Maradona, tailoring, clothing, you know, throw it all in there, you've got a pretty heady mix of just everything that I'm interested in. So don't get me wrong, let me make it very clear, it's not for everybody, but it's for the people that it's for. You'll probably be very much a different person after you visit it.
Nice. It's certainly a bit of you then.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I found it as early as I did, because Neapolitans, they've always welcomed me with open arms, and I'm very lucky that they've sort of accepted me and allowed me to tell their story. I'm blessed every single day. Very lucky.
Nice, nice. So, you know, I wanted to ask you about how the brand has grown in the last kind of sort of 9 or 10 years then. Do you rely a lot on social, people like word of mouth sharing, etc.?
I am a control freak by nature, so I don't I don't like advertising. It's unless it's like huge, massive budget, crazy stuff, which then I really like it, because I just think that's amazing that you're wasting all that money on promoting a product. I think that's amazing. But advertising on Facebook, advertising on all that sort of stuff, it does nothing for me. And I know so many brands and brands that I know really well use it, and they use it really well, but it's not necessarily something for me. So all the growth, and to be quite frank with you, the recent growth has been based, it's probably like a two-pronged thing. Well, maybe three actually, or I could keep going 4 or 5, but let's keep it at 3, otherwise we're here all day. I think the first one is that I am very active on social media.
Yeah.
Anybody have a question, I'll try my best to get back to you as soon as I can do. I like to put something up every day. I just like to keep people interested, because we all have such short attention spans in this day and age, that if I'm not there sort of knocking on your door going, I'm here, you might find something else, and that is absolutely fine. But you know, if I can keep interest in you, that's great with what I can communicate. The second off, and this is sort of, maybe this is me showing off a bit, but I don't really care that much. I do think that our customer service as regards the brand is very old-fashioned, in that whether you're buying a football or a cornicello, roll all the way up to, like, you know, we do shoes for 200 quid, and we do jewelry that's 300 quid, and all kinds of craziness. No matter what you're buying, I recognize that you've worked hard for your money, and you want to spend your money knowing that you're going to get a great product and a great service, and that's what we pride ourselves on. So I think that's a really good thing, and I think that translates. And I do think that's a really old-fashioned thing, but I do think people still really value that, and I know I do.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And then the third, we, like I said, whether the communication side of the social media and the customer service sort of meld together or whatever, but you know, whether I'm out and about in a factory or at night, if somebody sends me an email and they're like, oh, where is this? Or can you help me out with sizing on this? I'm always going to get back to you, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, because I think it's important. And it really frustrates me when I'm buying something. And I'm just like, hey, mate, can you just tell me what the chest measurement is on this sweatshirt? It takes them 3 days to get back to you. And all they're doing is saying, please consult the size chart. And you're like, mate, the size chart tells me nothing. But that's a personal gripe. And then the third, really, and I think this is probably the most important thing for any brand or any company, is the product. I think we've always made really cool stuff, and I will sort of say everything that I've ever done, I'm really proud of. Every single piece that I've done, apart from the bottle openers, not the Maradona ones, some other ones from a long time ago, they were terrible. But outside of that, I'm really proud of everything that I've ever done. But just at the minute, I think certainly in the last 2 years, I think we've communicated really well what we're good at. We're in a rich vein of like a really good sort of product and story and people and ideas, and people are really into different things, and we can edit ideas as we go along. So yeah, we've been just recently, I think we've been really lucky that we've been going down a route that people seem to want to help us get down and engage with and support it, and that's the most important thing, in my opinion.
I think you hit the nail on the head with all three of those points, really. I think when I first came across you guys, I think it's quite clear that you can see that you guys are trying to do something different and you really care about what you do as well. And it's not just kind of rolling things out for the sake of it. You are picking these things in particular to develop and release to people because they're cool. Like you say, they're really cool, they're really different, they're really individual objects, right?
Yeah, it's never really been a case of thinking, well, this will sell. I've never done that because there's stuff that we've done in the past that doesn't sell. And being quite honest with you, the stuff that I love the most very seldom sells as well as I think. And the stuff that I think is a bit, oh yeah, it's okay, but maybe there's some improvements we can make in that in the future. People go mad for. So it's you can't predict it, but all we can really do is put stuff out. And at the end of the day, like a really good pub, my name is above the door as you're coming in.
Yeah.
So it's a reflection of me, it's a reflection of my family and the people that have come before me and have been associated with me, the people that I've worked with, the factories that I work with. So nothing is in the shop that I wouldn't buy myself or endorse. And I think that's the most important thing. You see so many really cool shops that I grew up with thinking, wow, they're really cool. They've got a really sort of curated way of looking at the world and brands and stuff. And like now they're just sellouts, aren't they? They just sell anything. They're desperate to make the money to keep going. And I respect that, but I'm in a lucky, rarefied position whereby I don't necessarily have to do that as much because I don't have a shop to look after. I don't have 1,000 members of staff. I don't have a marketing budget. I don't have all these things that mean that you have to do things that maybe you're sacrificing your principles for. So I'm lucky in that regard. But yeah, we'll never put something out that is just a money maker because I'm not sure how comfortable I'd be with that. Because again, going back to what I said earlier, I think it being my name above the door, it's got to be something that we recognize would be great. And I can't have my mates texting me going, why are you releasing that? Because like if now where we are, if I released I don't know, a Juventus collection celebrating how much I liked Alessandro Del Piero, something like that, I think people are just like, what is wrong with you? So, yeah, we probably couldn't really do that now, but yeah, it's I'm very lucky that there's not too much pressure on me because the only person that can put pressure on me is me. So yeah, I'm very lucky that way.
I wanted to ask you kind of like if sticking to those principles and they seem really kind of solid foundation for the brand, etc. How do you want it to grow in the future? Where can it go, and kind of like can it still grow with that same kind of ethos?
I don't know. I think growing up playing football and liking all kinds of sport as I do, I don't necessarily see the growth really as a thing. Like a lot of businesses and people get caught up in the destination, don't they? Like without sounding like a 70s football manager, I just play every week, and that's
Right.
every product I release, I just do my best. And if I get to the end of the year and people are really happy with what I've done, great. If they're in the middle with there's somewhere that we need to improve, if they're not happy, then there's a lot of coaching that we'll need from our suppliers, manufacturers, customers as to how we can get better. But I'd love for people to think that I'm sat here thinking, oh, in 5 years we want to be turning over this and all that sort of stuff. I'm not that guy. I'm not in it for money, and I don't think anyone gets into the fashion industry to be in it for the money because you're not earning loads of money. You do it because you love it, and if you manage to make a living out of it, then even better. I'd love a shop. Will I ever have a shop in Accrington? Probably not. I'd love to, and maybe that's a goal. But I don't want to be stocked in shops because, again, going back to what I said earlier, I'm too much of a control freak. So the idea of me having my brand in Selfridges alongside Gucci and stuff. And if I go into that shop and I see that my t-shirt's like sort of half on a hanger looking terrible, that would literally break my heart. So, there is no like grand plan. If I can help the suppliers more by placing bigger orders because there's more people interested, that's a win for me. That's the biggest compliment that I can pay to the brands, the team Trickett that buy the stuff,
Right.
and the people involved with it. So yeah, I wish I could be really cool and sort of tell you that I'm this like business mastermind, but I'm barely able to like get up in the morning and brush my teeth as a human being. So the idea that I can run a successful business is a truly horrifying one, to be fair. So
doing it for the love, I really like that, Ian, and that really does come across in the stuff you're making, mate. So we're going to talk about the 3 football shirts you've chosen to talk about today in a moment, but I just wondered, before we do get there, this is probably going to go out in September, so I'm wondering, is there any kind of product that you can tell us about that will be coming out in the next couple of months, if you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, of course. Maybe people saw it or maybe they didn't. Seems like quite a lot of people did. A while ago, I got in touch with a company in Argentina that make bottle openers. They had this idea for a Diego Maradona one, and obviously that really piqued my interest. So they released the sort of initial prototype of this years ago. Nobody really sort of bit onto it, and this took literally almost a year of negotiations with this company to sort it.
Wow.
So we a Maradona bottle opener. Just to give you some idea, if a product that we do is popular, you'll maybe get like 100 likes on Twitter. If it's not so popular, you might get like 20.
Okay.
If it's really not, you don't get anything. This particular bottle opener at last count had over 20,000 likes.
Bloody hell.
So it's yeah. So it's gone pretty crazy, and that the manufacturer's been in recently. He's been in the newspaper because of this tweet that I put out. And, yeah, it's all gone a bit crazy. So that's quite nice. I think the thing that I'm most proud of, because it took a lot of effort and a lot of research, is we're recreating Lev Yashin's training top that he wore for the Soviet Republic during World Cups, and the rest of the team wore as well. I always thought it was red, but it turns out it's navy blue. There was never a red one ever made.
Wow.
And that all comes from surplus material for the army and stuff like that. So it's like a really cool story surrounding that. But ultimately, my brain works that quick that you're saying this is going out in September. There'll probably be 20 things that I think of between like now and then that aren't even in my brain. Like they'll be here when they arrive. So there's some planning that you have to do, like making sweatshirts in Portugal. You have to order those in advance because they custom make the fabric for us, so that takes a bit of effort.
Right.
But like only the other day, I've ordered some teapots that are a football with a bobble hat on, scarf and Predators, and that, if I would have said that was a thing in my brain 2 months ago, I'd have been like, "What are you on about?" But now it makes sense, and it's being made. Well, they're here, so goodness knows how they'll do. But I think they're really cool, which is an indication that they'll probably do terribly.
Well, hopefully not. They sound pretty cool to me as well. Mate, that's great. So, listen, let's talk about some football shirts. You've chosen some amazing ones. The first question I ask everybody in the podcast is, what do football shirts mean to you?
It's such a big question, and I like a big question. Truthfully, I think without football shirts, I was only saying this maybe 2 months ago, even before you've asked me to be on the show. Like, I don't know where I'd be, because they were my first introduction to design. They were mine and my dad's, who's like a huge influence on the way that I look at the world and look at design and stuff, even though he's terribly dressed, but we love him. He he and I together collecting football shirts, researching them and chasing them and things. Without that, I don't really know where I'd be, because I think football shirts to me were a way of expressing myself and finding out interesting intricacies about the fabric and construction and manufacture, where things were made and why things were made in a different way. So without football shirts and the sort of interest that I had in them, I wouldn't be anywhere near being interested in designing products or learning how to get stuff made or fabric or anything. So to say that it means everything to me as a collector, as an enthusiast, or even just as a person that appreciates like a nice bit of design, without that foundation of appreciating football shirts, I don't really know where I'd be, quite truthfully.
Wow. So there you go. Perfect guest to have on the podcast then.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but hopefully are all right for you.
Right, mate. Let's take a dive into these. So your first choice is the Newcastle United 95 to 97 home shirt by Adidas. It's the grandad collar one, the kind of old school rugby material as well. How come you chosen this one?
I don't say this lightly, and I don't care if you turn off after this point or whoever does, but that shirt is the greatest piece of sportswear that has ever been designed. And anyone who argues with you are entitled to your incorrect opinion, but is sublime. Like, just everything about it. Kicking off first, it represents the almost team, and underdogs and almost teams are like something that I am enthused by. I just think the sort of what ifs are what make life really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, all respect to the people that support like really successful teams and, you know, mourning that you haven't won a cup in 2 years or whatever. Like, you know, fair play. You know, I've come from a family of Burnley supporters who just literally hate life most days. And I'm an Accrington Stanley fan that has enjoyed like some of the greatest football that Stanley have ever played. I'm really lucky that way. But a lot of my mum and dad's friends are from the northeast, and I was growing up in that time when Newcastle were amazing. So having that and having that sort of background and people telling me how good the team were, that was amazing. But just getting purely down to construction, because it's a shirt that I've examined like in stupid detail. But if you take just the base black and white fabric, the fact that it's two different fabrics, the white is a much thicker polyester, the black is a much thinner polyester. Wow. With a natural weave in it, so that actually aerated the players when they were wearing it, because of the poly cotton collar that they had was a bit thick. I presume that's why they did that. The buttons had 3 stripes on them, the woven tag with the Adidas on it, the woven jock tag at the bottom with the whole like spiel about Newcastle United, and the buttons on the collar again, the way that they were like completely perfectly spaced. That was absolutely amazing. Then the fabric on the arms with the blue piping around the stripes, and then obviously finished with the Newcastle Brown Ale logo that when you wore it once, it got all like dust and crap on it. Just made it even more exciting for my mum to get absolutely perfectly clean every time that she had it. Obviously, that shirt was then complemented by the away shirt, and just everything about it was perfect. Like, even going into the shorts, how the shorts were made out of poly cotton, again, just gave it more of like an old school feel that wasn't really happening at that point. And the socks were embroidered, which again was something quite interesting, having the NUFC on there as well. So it's just a kit that I absolutely adore. Oh, and the badge is embroidered. I am a enthusiast for embroidered badges. I think sealed badges are a travesty, and if I was a professional footballer, I would request that I would have nipple burn purely on the fact that I would want an embroidered shirt. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of people that listen to this and identify that shirt, it meant something. Even if you hated the team, you know, that I can understand why there was so like Blackburn Rovers fans wouldn't like them, because they were sort of overtaking them at that point. And obviously United fans probably have a very soft spot for the shirt because of, you know, the jostle to win the league and stuff. And Alan Shearer fans sort of picture him in that shirt. It was it was a great time. The construction of the shirt was amazing, and the shirts were made in England as well, which again was like amazing. You know, as stuff was going offshore, there's some absolutely amazing imagery of people making these shirts, and they were piled high. And like I found out off a few people, like a friend of my dad, he owned a sports shop down the road. It was only like a small sports shop, and like he said that in those 2 years, and it was like a village shop, not a big shop at all. He sold 5,000 shirts. Of those Newcastle shirts, and that he said that was like small fry in comparison to what JJB and like All Sports and JD and all the big dogs were selling. So I can only imagine how much money Adidas and Newcastle must have made off that brief period, to be fair. So I feel as if I've gone on too much about that shirt, but just to be very clear, it is the greatest shirt that's ever been designed, and the one that says any different is completely wrong.
Do you know, Ian, I feel like I've learned so much. That's actually been chosen on the podcast before, a couple of times actually, that shirt or that combo of shirts, and just nobody's ever gone into the detail about the construction before, which I absolutely love. I think you're right. They stand out, don't they? There doesn't seem to be many shirts that take that level of detail or try to do something that different in that period, for sure. I'm not quite sure why Adidas went with that kind of look and feel in particular. It wasn't a kind of celebration or anything, as far as I'm aware. It wasn't like a retro to, you know, like a league win or a cup win, as far as I'm aware.
No, and the template they used on Deportivo La Coruña, and they used it on the Spain shirt in 1996 as well, which incidentally are two beautiful shirts as well, but they're probably only beautiful because of my association with the shirt, with the Newcastle shirt and stuff. But they were beautiful shirts as well, because they did something different, and I think that's something that at that time was sort of seriously lacking. Most of the places were still bespoke making kits for the sort of top 2 league teams or whatever. So it was quite interesting. But that shirt, it did, unlike a lot of shirts, it did a fantastic job of pleasing everybody. And I think this was the era as well of people starting to wear their shirts out, as opposed to you only wear it at the match, or you couldn't even get a shirt in a lot of cases, could you? Sort of going to the 70s and 80s. This was a shirt that you could probably go for a night out in because of how nice it looked, and that was unheard of. Imagine going out in a football shirt for something to eat or whatever, but this shirt looked like something that you could probably get away with because it didn't look too much like a football shirt. And again, that's all down to the cotton, the design, the way that it was put together, the fabrics, you know, the colors used and everything, and the Newcastle Brown Ale logo. It just made it look like something, you know, interesting. And then that's before we get onto like Les Ferdinand and the numbers on the back, and how the names were blocked all together rather than individual letters, and the 3 stripes in the top corner of the numbers and stuff. And Les Ferdinand breaking my heart and going from number 9 to number 10 when my dad had just bought me a number 9 Ferdinand shirt, not thinking that Alan Shearer would then go on and wear the number 9 shirt, because Les Ferdinand is single-handedly the greatest striker. That's somewhat, I understand that might be a little bit tenuous to say that Les Ferdinand's the greatest striker of all time, but the shirt definitely is. I don't care who you are. The shirt is the greatest shirt ever made. Les Ferdinand is a lovely bloke, and I met him in a car park in Leicester. It's not as sordid as it sounds, and he's a lovely man. Lovely man.
Lovely stuff. Wouldn't expect anything less from the big man. Love it. So let's go to your second choice. So we've got Borussia Dortmund 94 to 95 home shirt by Nike. Tell me more, mate.
So obviously Drake Ramberg, the guy at Nike who was doing everything at this point, is probably one of the biggest influences on the way that I look at design. I would never replicate anything that he does, because he's just, you know, he's on at that point, and to be fair, even now, he was on a different planet as regards how football shirts should look, whether that's his background at Nike, whether that's how he looks at the world, whether it's his influences, whether it's interesting art and illustration and stuff. It was just, you know, completely on a different planet at that point, whether it was the stuff that he was doing to Arsenal, Nigeria, you know, all these kits that Nike were making during that period pretty much set the foundation for where they are now, which are probably the biggest, just maybe, who knows, up for debate, football brand in the world. So they are it's his fault, really, that I got into shirts as much as I did. This is a bit of a rambling story why I like this, but you'll just have to bear with me. So you'll have to come with me to the heady days of like 1994, 1995. And me, my dad, my sister, and my mum were on holiday in Mallorca, I'm going to say.
Okay.
And where we were the only English people in this particular hotel. All that was around were German blokes, and it was men, weirdly, mostly. So not families, but anyway, well, I don't know why that's come back to me, but that's just anyway. So around the corner, all you could buy were German magazines. So obviously I was obsessed with football, and I'd be like, Dad, will you buy me this pre-season review of the Bundesliga? I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I just had like a bloke on the front in a kit, and I was like, oh, well, that's quite interesting. Can I have that? So my dad bought it for me, and I religiously sat through and read every page and read all about the players and saw what they were wearing. And then early, you got through Augsburg and all these people, and then these beautiful fluorescent yellow shirts from Borussia Dortmund were there. And I was like, Dad, how do we get hold of one of these? Why do you want a Borussia Dortmund shirt? Who even are Borussia Dortmund? I was like, Dad, I don't care. I want this shirt. And I didn't know anything about Drake Ramberg and anything. I'm just a kid who wants this shirt. So we get back to England. Not that I didn't give it a second thought or anything. It was just like, I'm never going to get a Borussia Dortmund shirt. This obviously is well before the days of the internet and just going onto Kitbag and putting your own name on the back of a Borussia Dortmund shirt.
Yeah.
This could not happen. Like, this is, this does not happen. So I remember getting back from school one day and there was a parcel from Germany. I'm like, no.
Wow.
And my dad was like grinning at me, like, yeah. So I opened this the parcel, and in it is that shirt with the famous eagle wings and the neck and the bit of piping across the top, and he even managed to get me with the jersey with 9 Chapuisat with the printing on the back. So the Swiss genius that he was. But this was, and I only really liked Stefan Chapuisat. I'd never seen any of his work on the football field. I just liked him because he had amazing hair on this particular photo. So I think that's why we got Chapuisat on the back. Before I came on, I was like, said to my dad, why did we get Stefan Chapuisat on the back of the shirt? And he was just like, oh, well, you really liked his hair. And I think the only person we could get on the back of it. So I was like, all right, brilliant. So the story goes that I was at school one day and my dad found this magazine, and he's like, oh, he like me likes a bit of a challenge when it comes to acquiring products. So he famously rings up a international directory inquiries, and he was just telling me just before I came on that it was a Scottish lady that picked up the phone and gave him the number for Borussia Dortmund, not the club shop, but the main switchboard at Borussia Dortmund. So my dad rings up off a landline in Accrington to Dortmund and says, hello, my name's Barry. I have no idea how to speak German that well. Can you put me through to the club shop? So half thinking that somebody would speak fluent German back to him and give up. This nice lady on the other end of the phone said, that is no problem, sir. Well, I'll put you straight through. So he gets put straight through to the Borussia Dortmund club shop. And this is in the very early 90s. So his head must have been exploding at this point. And he says, my son's a really big fan. Can you send me a shirt? And they were like, yeah, no problem. What we need you to do is to put your credit card details on 2 separate pieces of paper and then fax them to this number with the dispatch address, and we'll sort it. Wow. So my dad, being a bit of a punker like me, did that. They processed it all, and 2 days later, because it was sent by UPS, it was with us. So there you go. That's
incredible.
It's a great shirt. It will stand the test of time. Dortmund in fluorescent yellow is exactly how they should be playing. It's a travesty that they don't play in it anymore because I think it's iconic. But the story with that shirt is infinitely more impressive than the actual shirt. I'm sure there's people that went to Dortmund Stadium and bought the shirt. during that period, like that were from wherever that wasn't in Germany. But my dad going out of his way, like a very strange person that he is, to go and get me a jersey that I had no real right to have in Accrington was a bit surreal. And added on to that, later on in the year we went for Easter to somewhere else. I think it was in Spain somewhere. And I remember walking down the street, and they're a family of German people. And the son, who was about 18 at that point, picks me up, like starts singing Dortmund chants at me, picking me, throwing me in the air like this, because obviously seeing a Dortmund shirt probably would have been very rare at that point. Yeah. So he's like throwing me in the air, and I'm thinking, I'm being kidnapped here, aren't I? And my dad just runs across, and he's like, oh, he's not German, he just likes the shirt. And they were like, what? And so like my dad had to explain about why I bought a German football shirt and stuff, and these Germans look utterly perplexed. But that's how it begins. My interest in football shirts and getting something a bit different. So yeah, the shirt's great. Drake Ramberg always does a fantastic job on anything that he does, and that whole period was amazing. But my dad going out of his way to get a football shirt for his son because he saw it in a German magazine sort of typifies who he is as a person, and probably what he instilled into me as don't take no as an answer when it comes to finding products.
I absolutely love it. So let's move on to your final shirt. So this is the Maradona shirt at Napoli. It's by Enere. I think it was 85 to 87. So it's the one they won the Scudetto in, right?
Yeah, it's the one that they wore during winning the Scudetto. And it's a great shirt. It's filled with memories for me, and it's one that I sort of came to quite late, really. Like I'm very lucky that I have one now, because I just could not have one for my collection. But I think again, it's more the story with that shirt rather than them being nearly men. The fact that a team from the south of Italy, and then there's going to be people, well, Rome's in the south, mate. You're not in the south. All right, let's just put
culturally they're not, right?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Anyway, a team from the south winning the Scudetto with Diego Armando Maradona, the city being alive, just desperate for him to do something, spending all that money when they were so poor, when the city was in disarray, having no money to take away rubbish and things, and there was a cholera epidemic, all those sorts of things that were going on in the city, and them winning something in that shirt to sort of unite Naples is just wonderful. Don't get me wrong, from a construction point of view, it's terrible. Like, it's overlocked seams, it's pinned on badges, and just, horrible. But
right.
It really is. Like, people get sort of quite teary-eyed and excited about shirts from the 70s and 80s, but the reality is the shirts are probably better made now than they were then. Like, the fabrics were better then because they didn't really know how to make cheap fabrics. If they could have got away with making cheap fabrics back then, they would have done. But they were literally just construct them, sell them as cheap as they possibly, sell them for as expensive as they possibly could, and manufacture for as cheap as possibly as they could. So it's I think the shirt as it regards it as a piece of design is amazing. The colours on it, but as regards construction, it isn't. But as with so many things, especially with football, it's not necessarily about the shirt. It is about what it represents, and that shirt uniting a city and uniting a group of people under one vision, one goal, and achieving something that probably no one would have ever thought they would have done it once, let alone twice. It's pretty incredible, and I think it's a testament to how good Diego Maradona was, and secondly, just to how great the city is and how much they appreciated just winning one Scudetto.
Nice. Well, look, Ian, there's 3 amazing choices, 3 amazing shirts, and 3 amazing stories. It's been absolutely amazing to speak to you, mate. Where can people find you and follow you on social and stuff?
You can find me on Instagram, which is @Trickett England. It's the same on Twitter, which is @Trickett England. Or you can go to the website just to make things really complicated. It's tricket-england.co.uk. And we will be happy to help you in any way that we can. But please do not email me saying that the Newcastle 95 to 97 home shirt is not the best shirt in the world, because you will be incorrect. So, and you will not get a response. So, yeah. But yeah, I super appreciate being able to talk about football shirts, and it's nice to even be listened to rant on about them. It's very kind of you to have me on the show.
Mate, lovely stuff. Thanks so much.
Not a problem at all.
So there you have it. Massive thanks to Ian for sharing his football kit memories with me. Remember, you can follow me, my own collection on Instagram, or get in touch via Twitter or email. Make sure you follow Ian and check out Trickett. I bloody love the gear he makes. The music heard was produced by Evaled. You can check out his music on his Bandcamp page. There's links to absolutely everything I mentioned in the notes section. And finally, thanks to you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do spread the word, give me a follow on social, and subscribe to Football Kit Memories on your podcast player of choice. And other than that, I'll catch you on the next one.